Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on the journey toward publication. I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane. I write multiple genres, including Christian dystopian fiction.
I'm Rhonda Hagerman, and I write fiction and nonfiction.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We are live, so who knows what's going to happen. If you like what we do, remember to like and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. All right, so we always start off with a segment we call What's Up? Not because we grew up in the 80s, but because we like to check in with each other as to what's going on with our personal lives. So what's up with you, Jennifer?
When we actually did grow up in the 80s, but it's another snow day in the Tong household. My girls are home again, this time a second day in a row for ice. So we missed all last week. We so far missed 2 days this week. I heard a rumor that the state's not going to make all the schools make these up because this is an exorbitant amount of time. So that's good because we'd be like going to school all summer long at this point. So my girls are like playing downstairs and life is going on. 1 week from today, searching for Anna releases. So I'm all about that right now. I'm all about releasing and about Facebook posts and stuff. And people have been so generous and so excited. That's really what my life is right now. It's all about my kids and the book. So
that's awesome.
How about you, Ron?
Yeah, what's up with you, Rhonda? No, it's okay. Go ahead, Rhonda.
Well, I'm in Rogers City today, which is our retreat that we've talked about many times on the podcast before. And I'm dreaming that the ghosts of the other women are here with me. I'm trying to get as much writing done as I can and be really focused on it. Yeah, it's really snowy. And also, I'm really excited to tell my girls about Michigan not making them make the school days up because they had to make them all up. So they're going to be thrilled to find out about these other kids.
Yeah, and I grew up in Metro Detroit, and again, it was a couple of years ago, and so we didn't get quite as many snow days. And I just remember we would listen to the radio. I mean, we had a television, but my dad had the radio on in the morning, just listening, and it was never Utica schools. Okay, so what's up with you, Tina?
I'm also here in sunny Michigan, where it's icy and cold, and I just want to, I don't know how many of the listeners realize this. I probably talked about it before, but my little boy, he's not little, he's 15. He got a bunny for Christmas. We actually got it a couple months before Christmas, and we had it in a cage for a while until we realized how just mean that was to keep him in the cage. So now he shares my office with me. So I just want to apologize in advance because he's got some major reconstruction going on over in the corner in his little house. It's made of cardboard, and he decided he wanted a sunroof. So there's not a lot I can do to keep him from, if you hear cardboard chewing, that's the bunny. So, and I also, yes, I did grow up in the 80s, so I was supposed to say that. I was a teenager. Maybe.
You didn't have to admit that, how old you were. I know we're a little bit, we're close in age, all of us, but yeah, the 80s.
I'm older than y'all three.
All right, I won't talk too much about the beautiful weather I'm experiencing here in Florida because everything you guys have been talking about was a major factor in our decision to get down here. I will say though that since this is why we moved down here, I've really been appreciating it. I mean, it is so bizarre to just be outside and think, this is February 6th. Like last night we came out of the grocery store and you're so used to bracing for that cold, and it's just warm and beautiful. So I am very thankful that we were able to make that move. I do miss all of my friends in Michigan, except for you guys. I see an awful lot of you guys, so it's hard to miss you. But personally, we're just trucking along here, literally and figuratively. My husband is on the road quite a bit for work, and we're just doing what needs to be done and getting everything done. So I guess that's about it for the What's Up catch up, right? So we are going to jump right into our topic today, which is tropes. Tropes. What are they? Why do they matter? So, Tina, why don't we start off with you defining the word tropes for us, letting us know what they are?
Okay, well, if you were to look up the word tropes in the dictionary, you would be confused. Because the word tropes is actually the use of figurative language, like cliches, in writing or in reading or whatever. So the use of cliches and little literary devices in your writing are what tropes are. But it has kind of morphed into, and this is the definition that we're actually talking about today, meaning commonly recurring literary devices that authors use in usually specific to a genre.
So, Jennifer, I think if we move over and asked you what are some common tropes of romance, it would help to serve as, like, for instance, you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, there's quite a few in my genre, but like, for instance, a common trope would be when they meet up, they hate each other and have to fall back in love. Another trope is like a love triangle. She already has a boyfriend, but he's a jerk. So here's this other guy over here. I hate that trope, by the way. That's a whole nother discussion at another episode. Tropes are things that like you would see commonly in a book, in a movie, but yet you see repeatedly in the same genre. So Christmas tropes would be like, kissing in the it starts snowing when they finally decide to kiss each other, or they're just about to kiss and all of a sudden someone knocks on the door, someone comes rushing in and there's an emergency. So things that you see commonly.
So now you said that you have some that you hate or whatever, but why then do tropes at all? Why is it important to put them in your story?
Well, because this is kind of cool that we're talking about this today, because I've been reading in my genre a lot recently. I mean, I read in my genre all the time anyways, because I'm at first a reader. I'm a writer because I love being a reader. And I've noticed as a writer, it's hard to remove that part of you as you read now. But as I read books, there are things that like strike me as and I realize a lot of it is because the writer is going outside of what is expected. When someone picks up a book to read it in a certain genre, whether they realize it or not, they expect certain things. You expect that in a romance that there's going to be a happily ever after. Technically, there has to be a happily ever after, otherwise it can't be qualified as romance. You expect that there is going to be some conflict. You don't expect them to get together at the very beginning and the whole rest of the book just them be together. There has to be some conflict. In a mystery, you expect there's going to be, a death or some sort of other major life mystery, which I know Rhonda can speak on that way better than me. But there's an expectation when you pick up a book in your genre. So the reason why tropes are important is because the expectation is there and readers are looking for a certain kind of entertainment. It doesn't mean you can't break through that and do a different twist on it, but there has to be a certain amount of matching that expectation in order for there to be reader satisfaction by the time they close the book.
Okay, great. So the whole idea of doing that on purpose, that thing where I'm sitting and I'm watching a movie and I'm like, okay, blah, blah, blah is going to happen. And then it happens. So I kind of am just, when I first heard of this, I'm like, I hate this. But so if you have to sort of deliver what the reader is expecting and you have to follow the tropes of your genre, great. Except, how do you learn the tropes of your genre? I kind of tried to search around on the internet, list of tropes or something, and it isn't as if there's a neat and tidy compilation. So let's talk a little bit about how do you learn the tropes of your genre. Anyone want to speak to that?
Well, there's a website called tvtropes.com that's fantastic. It has thousands upon thousands of different tropes, and it's geared towards screenwriters, but it's absolutely usable for a writer.
Maybe that's the trick, is to think about it. And that's even what I said, isn't it? I'm watching a movie or whatever. Yep. So those translate well into novels. Do you have a resource for us, Tina? Because I know you, like me, had kind of a hard time finding a list of tropes or something.
Yeah, and I think the problem that I was having, I was kind of trying to look some stuff up this morning too, just to refresh my memory. It's because I'm writing a dystopian, and dystopia is actually a literary device.
Oh.
So it's actually listed under literary devices. So it has become a genre. Because it's, we have like the Hunger Games and Divergent and those kind of stories that are dystopian. So it's become a genre, but it started out as a literary device. So that might be why I had so much trouble. But for me, I really, since I read in that genre, I just had to kind of start thinking about what are the common threads through all of these books and try to piece it together myself, because yeah, you're right. You can't, it's really hard to just look up what are dystopian tropes.
So Jennifer touched on this a little bit too. Would you guys then recommend just reading as much as you can in the genre that you write so you can learn the tropes?
Yeah, because then they just are second nature to you.
I think that whatever you're drawn to write, you've probably already read a lot in the area. And if you are not a reader and you're sitting down to write, I'm concerned. You need to, no, I mean, seriously, you need to, it'd be like a doctor, because someone becoming a doctor and they've never visited a hospital in their life. They've never been sick and never used a doctor. Like, you don't even know what you're getting yourself into. But you need to be a reader first. Even Stephen King says that all the time. If you don't have time to read, you don't have time to write. That's a direct quote from him. And as we're talking, I keep thinking about this other quote too, and I can't remember who said it. It's an older, like, I don't think the person has been alive anymore, but every story that's ever going to be written has already been told. And the first time I heard that, I was like, oh, that's kind of sad, but it's true.
That sounds like Kurt Vonnegut.
Maybe. But the only difference is that we bring everything we bring to the table is our own experiences and our own twist on it. You know, that's why there's so many Cinderella stories out there and so many redemption stories. And, you know, it's because of tropes. That's exactly what they're talking about. But it doesn't mean that it has to be boring.
Yeah, I mean, that was something I wanted to touch on. How do you include tropes without making sure that you're just not copycatting or that your work is not just turning formulaic? I mean, I have heard of writers, especially in this modern age of self-publishing, that they kind of have a little formula where they know there has to be this kind of a thing, and they kind of just replace the character names and they replace the way the person is murdered or whatever. And so how do you do that while the reader still feels like they're getting something fresh? Is that anything that you guys can speak to, or do you feel that's not been anything you've had to worry about? Or,
well, every writer has their own voice and they've got their own life experience to draw from. So I don't think unless you're really making an effort to copy somebody, I don't think you can. It's not that easy.
I mean, I guess if you look at the exercises that we even do in 15 minutes, we will find different things, even using the same words. So that's a good point. All right. So Jenny,
I think blanketing in prayer too. I mean, like we are all coming at this from a Christian perspective as well. And our listeners, I'm assuming, since our name is pretty obvious what we talk about here. But I really feel like God gives me my stories. And even though I can look at every single one of my stories and I can find a trope in there, really, he has given me the people. And I know I've mentioned this before, but I saw Jeanette Oak interviewed once, and the whole interview, the one line that stood out to me is she said, characters matter. And that is so true about her books. Like, you remember the characters. And so for me, it always starts with the characters. The trope comes second. You know, like you have the characters, you know who they are, you know their experiences, you know what they're struggling with, then how do you work them through that? And it just kind of comes through for me. So I think prayer and God's intervention, and it makes a huge difference in the story for me.
I think, Tina, you could probably say that becoming aware of tropes even maybe can help you decide where to go next with a plot line, right?
Yeah, definitely. I know that I was struggling with the murky middle. You know, I started this novel like 10 years ago with a what if question, and I remember sitting down and writing this prologue that I really liked, and every now and then I'd go in and tweak the prologue a little bit. And then it was several years later that I decided to do NaNoWriMo, that I decided to write the story that went with this prologue. But I was really just pantsing it, and I didn't have a good understanding of story structure. I mean, I just kind of was going on instinct, because I had read, I have always been a bookworm and just devoured books. So although I didn't have like a class or, you know, somebody gave me an outline of this is what story structure looks like, I kind of had this thing inside of me of what I knew what a story was. And so I just sat down to write it. But now the problem I'm having now, or have been having, is I don't know where my book fits as far as genre. where if I had sat down and said, okay, I'm going to write a dystopian book in advance, I would know where I wanted to go and what tropes I wanted to hit. Where now I'm trying to kind of go backwards and try to make sure that what I already wrote hits the tropes of a genre, so I can say this is the genre of my book, because it has some post-apocalyptic characteristics. It has a little bit of supernatural stuff going on, and it's dystopian. So it's kind of merged. It could be in either 3 of those genres, and I just have to kind of nail it down of where I want it, where I want to market it.
And you're really willing to rework your story until you get what it is that you want, right? Or what you would be the good story, right? And I think it's really important for our listeners to hear that, because I can't tell you how many times in the different writing groups I'm in, especially Christian writing groups on Facebook, of people not being able to categorize their book. And I just so bad want to reach out to them and say, you might need a rewrite. Like you know, like it's so important that you can categorize your book, because I know God gave you this story, but if you can't get that story into people's hands, then the story is wasted, right? And the way we get stories in people's hands is through marketing and through, and people don't want to hear that. People want to just like, oh, God gave me the story, he's just going to get it out there, and he can. I agree, he absolutely could do that. But God also gave us a brain, and God also gave us abilities, and common sense. Yeah, and sometimes we have to, like, we all know how much I'm reworking this one right here and how much I'm struggling with it. And this was the first one, and God completely gave me this one, but I didn't handle it as probably as well as I should have. And I'm trying to do good by God with it now, you know? So I think it's really good for people to hear that, Tina, that you're acknowledging that, like, that you have to keep reworking it until it's right. So I appreciate you being honest like that and open for everyone to hear that.
Rhonda, I'm curious to know, does trope factor in when you're doing nonfiction, when you're writing like your museum articles and things like that?
Well, I think that whenever you pick up a book, you've got expectations for it. And whether it's by the title or judging the book by the cover, which you shouldn't do, but I always do, you're expecting something. So I think that anytime you're expecting something in a book, there's got to be a trope involved. So right now, actually, before I get my first mystery published, I'm going to have my first nonfiction published. And that's going to be based on a family's genealogy and their history in the area that I live in. And so, yes, people are going to expect to see some family information, photographs, if they're available. They're going to want to know some background on the area they're living in and why they ran their farm the way they did. So there are tropes. They're not quite as cut and dry as in fiction, but yes, you do have expectations to meet for your reader.
Awesome. And so I guess, again, it's another plug for reading a lot of what you would like to produce so that you know what the expectation is. That's great. Do you want to speak at all to your fiction that you write?
Sure, I can. Okay, so Mom and I are writing cozy fiction, cozy mysteries. And so the two of us are doing novels, and then I'm writing novellas. And of course, she's got her fingers in that one too, which is very helpful for me. So basically, we're in the cozy mystery genre. And so usually there's a female amateur detective, and usually they're based in small town. So that makes it easy for everybody to know each other, you know, it makes it realistic. And usually the murder victim, it's off camera. So you don't actually see the murder happen. It's not graphic at all. And usually it's like poisoning or like one gunshot to the heart or something. So it's not messy in any way. And so those are really what set all the cozy mysteries apart from, say, a John Grisham, which is going to be a legal thriller, like a Michael Connelly, where you've got today's version of a hardboiled detective.
Awesome. So I have a question then. When we get together for critique, or in other critique circles I've even been at, the person will preface, now this is blah-de-blah genre. So like, for example, we've given you feedback in the past, well, it feels a little info dumpy to me. And you've said, well, in cozy, in the very beginning, the reader expects you to tell them exactly what is going on. So So would you say that that's a trope? Like, would we call those sort of literary things that are unique to your genre also a trope?
Yes. Because the cozy mystery is more personal, where the reader for the other genres, they want to know about the thrill of what's going on, or like the detective's process or whatever. Where the cozy mystery is more about
the characters,
personalities and characters. Yep.
So it's not so important to know, and that's why the deaths are so kind of clean and tidy. There's no like forensic deep stuff or something. So that's cool to know. So Jen, we've heard a little about romance, and thanks for sharing that. And we've heard from Rhonda. Tina, what have you discovered about the tropes for what you're writing?
Well, dystopian. Usually, of course, dystopia is the opposite of utopia. So usually you have people living in a society where the expectation of the people or the government, so to speak, is that this is utopia. But it actually isn't, because it doesn't work. There's either corruption, or there's greed on the part of the people in charge are somehow keeping the people down, or the way that they have set it up oppresses people, that kind of thing. There's usually foreshadowing, I've noticed, in a lot of the dystopian books that I've read. And the protagonist is usually an anti-hero. So, and the use of irony also is used a lot in dystopian. So, for my novel, it's a religious society based on living under the New Old Testament law. And so we all know, like anybody that's read the Old Testament understands how oppressive that law was. And so that's my dystopia.
So, so Jennifer, would you say there must be a happily ever after is like the unbreakable trope of romance? Would you say?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
If it doesn't have an HEA, it is not a romance.
Happily ever after.
That's not just me, right? Happily ever after, and that's not just me. That is the industry. Yep.
Wow.
If you've written something you think is a romance and they don't end up together happily ever after, it's not a romance. It's women's lit, mystery, whatever, but it's not a romance. Yep.
Okay, but happily for now does work.
Happily for now works, especially if you're going to write a series. My series tend to be at the end of each book. It's a happily ever after, and then as the series continues, it's another character in the world that I'm writing in. But some romance writers will do a series with the same couple, and it's a happily ever after for now, which is kind of, I think, what's going to happen with book 3, because I plan on down the road continuing with this couple in their adventures in the Upper Peninsula. But yeah, so that works too, but it has to have an HEA of some sort.
Awesome. Can you guys think of any other unbreakable tropes for any other genre? I mean, I would think that if you're writing some kind of a mystery, like you have to solve it by the end of the book, right? Like you can't write, 60,000 plus words of blah, blah, blah mystery and then have it just be like, well, turns out, I don't even know. I don't even know how you would write a mystery without solving it at the end.
Right. And red herrings are a trope of mystery.
So you think there has to be one maybe, or you haven't written a mystery? I'm just wondering if there's anything as firm as that happily ever after, because that's the big one that I knew about romance going into this whole discussion.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah,
well, maybe our listeners and viewers can help us out. Do you know of another trope that is as well known and you must do this as that happily ever after? I'm just really curious to know. So drop us a line. And we are going to wrap up our discussion about tropes unless anybody has anything else to add.
I just wanted to say earlier that when Rhonda was talking about cozy mysteries, a really great example that almost everybody knows about is Murder, She Wrote. If you've ever watched Murder, She Wrote, that is the cozy mystery. So
yep.
Very cozy. Good job.
Well, then I just wanted to add about Tina talking about dystopia. When I was growing up in the 80s, so I used to read a lot of like Isaac Asimov and who else? Orson Scott Card, that sort of thing. And so they always had the dystopian trope. But today the dystopian novels, like she's saying, it's the novel is a dystopian genre, like Tina was saying. And I just was thinking back when she was talking that's true, that it has changed.
That would be interesting. If in 20 years there is something else that is currently a trope that becomes a genre, wouldn't that be kind of neat? All right. So,
and I'd like to say too, if you are a romance writer and you're having trouble, figuring out trope, just sit down and watch the Hallmark Channel for an afternoon. And I guarantee that at least lately, most of the movies in a row will have the same exact trope, especially at Christmas time. But no, seriously though, like I think that sometimes for any of us, no matter what genre we're talking about, if you're having trouble figuring out trope and you're a reader, maybe try switching over to movies. Sometimes movies make it a lot more obvious. Watch a few movies in your genre right in a row, and you'll pick out some common things. That there's always a male lead character and a female that's in distress, or there's a strong female character that the men don't want to be the leader, but she ends up being the leader. Whatever, I don't know. So that was just a suggestion of mine for our listeners.
Terrific. Anyone else want to weigh in on tropes, why they're important and what they are? Okay, well, goody then, because it means it's time for feedback. Yes, we feed our backs with positive and encouraging comments because just before we started this live stream, we all took 15 minutes and the same words and wrote a completely unique story. Tina, you have the words for us?
Yes. Assessment, grandmother, attract, medium, and withdraw.
All right. Great. So we each had 15 minutes to write a story and include those 5 words. Jennifer, I know you're really excited to read your piece, and you're first in my little windows across the bottom. So why don't you hit us?
Okay. I am very excited because I didn't want it to be done because I wanted to continue this. I realized I only used 3 of the words because I got so into the story, and I got 442 words in 15 minutes.
Nice.
So here we go. A medium chicken is worth more than a huge promise. Her grandmother's words of wisdom echoed in the recesses of her mind. Promise. That is what she had once thought he held. Promise. But just as her grandmother's proverb had predicted, a promise was worth nothing. At least not any promise that had ever been made to Addie Wilkinson. She crossed the street and headed for the bank to withdraw the last of her money. Its false front, shiny as a new penny, disguised the truth of the rundown existence that made up the other 3 sides of the building. But like everything else in this town, no one seemed to mind that what was presented was merely a mirage, nothing else. Sad to see you go, Miss Wilkinson. The town won't be half as bright without your pretty face. Addie smiled weakly at the short man, round as the coins she was dropping in her purse. He was a kind man and only meant sweetness with his words, unlike the rest of the men in this town who thought it was their right to constantly assess for the looks that God had given her. Thank you, Mr. Ripley, but every cow has its day. She winced at another of her grandmother's words given when, as a child, Addie had cried over the butchering of her favorite steer. My time here is limited. I think we all knew that. Well, he said, his jowls softening a bit. I think we all expected a different ending, at least of late. She snatched up her satchel, nodded her goodbye, and swept out of the door before his words had time to penetrate the wall she had been trying so desperately to build up. The stagecoach lay ahead, only a few more yards, and she'd be there. She'd board it, and she'd leave this little town and all its memories behind. She'd leave him behind as well. Addie. The voice, though deep as warm sorghum on a warm biscuit, was soft and quiet, but the sound of her name on his lips reverberated through her body like an earthquake in the valley. Why, God, she prayed. She was so close to leaving heartbreak behind. Why had he come after her? His voice had caused her to stop, but it didn't have to make her stay. She took another step. So did he. In half the amount of steps it would take her, he had stepped in front of her and now held her shoulders in his large, calloused hands. Why are you going? She wouldn't cry. She wouldn't. 3, 2, 1. Time's up.
Yay! So I love that he is as round as the coins. That was really a precious gem of a sentence there. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that too.
So is this something you've been thinking about? And is this maybe the next series?
No, but I will give a little insight to our listeners. All right, so my Love and Lansing series is done. We're rewriting, editing stage, but those stories are finished and will all release this year. And next year I will be releasing a new series, which I start writing this April. And I am going to be changing time periods and changing locales. And I'm going to be doing a series that I'm tentatively calling Widows of the West. So
this is not part of that, because I want more of this story. Come on now.
I think so. Like,
okay.
My mind, even though I'm still writing, like rewriting and editing Phoebe, my mind is already starting to work like in the West and Montana and Texas. And I just so bad want to go on a vacation and see the mountains and be able to write about it.
Road trip.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. Like, we can write it off, right? It's a business expense.
I think that there's a lot of wisdom in what you're doing. And I don't know if we can find enough meat in the topic to make a separate podcast about it. But I think sometimes writers get into this. It's just kind of like caring for an elderly person. You are so used to doing that when that particular duty ends, you don't know what to fill the space with. And I think that's what keeps a lot of writers from getting to the finish line. What will I do if I'm not constantly planning and plotting and scheming about this novel? Because it's taken up so much of my heart for so long. What could I ever fill in the gap with? So I think there's really wisdom in planning the next thing, so that you have something to look forward to and your subconscious isn't worried about letting go of what you currently have. So I think there's wisdom there, Jen.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I've noticed a lot recently that there are a lot of authors that they focus on one time period and like that's just their thing. And a lot of them are Regency, England Regency writers, and they have a huge following and that's their thing. And that's all they write. And, great for them. But as a reader, I like to read all different types of history, like because I love history too. So like I just find it exciting when I pick up a colonial book and I read this love story and I learn all these cool things about what it was like in the colonies. And then the next instant I'm picking up a World War II novel. Like I really enjoy that. So as a writer, I want to be that kind of writer. Like I want to explore different time periods. But the planning thing, we had our Bujo episode and I was not a Bujo fan to begin with. I wasn't against the Bujo, but I spent a lot of time making it cool because I just wanted to, but I use it every single day. I'm shocked. And I've mapped out, all my planning. It's all color coded of like what I'm writing, what I'm editing. And that has really helped to focus me. And, you girls, Camp Nano is just around the corner. Next month is March and we'll be planning our whatever we're going to write in April. So golly.
Well, Jen, can you maybe tell us more about that Bujo when we get over to accountability? Because sure. I want to know if you are checking off that checklist that you've got in there.
Do that. I want to hear you guys' writing. So
yeah, I'm going to tell my story because I was talking about end of care. It must be I'm end of life care, and that's what I wrote about. And it's very short. I'm not very happy with this piece, but they can't all be home runs. So here we go. Dr. Johann turned his pen over and over, clicking it open and then closed. Can you stop with that racket? Bernie shifted in the plastic armchair. Calm down, Uncle Bernie. I'm sorry, Dr. Johann said, setting the pen back on the desk. It helps me think. I don't even realize I'm doing it. Well, it's annoying as all get out, tell you what, Bernie replied. Dr. John cleared his throat. Do you know why you're here? For an assessment, said the niece, whose name was Leslie. I was asking your uncle. Oh, sorry. Dr. Johann allowed his eyes to take in the woman's clothes. She wore a modest and flirty blouse over jeans that were torn but not fashionably so. She wore tattered sneakers and had a cheap plastic purse slung over one shoulder. Of course, the official assessment would begin once she had been sent from the room, but this interview was serving a purpose. I'm here because I tried to withdraw money from the bank to try and help my family out. And just because I ain't as young as I used to be, everyone thinks they have the right to tell me how to spend my money. You must admit it was a significant amount of money, Dr. Johann said. So it's my money. I ought to be able to spend it however I see fit. The old man grabbed his niece's hand and lifted it as though she were a champion prize fighter. This little girl right here understands. She knows I've been saving since her grandmother, my mother, came to live in my place, and I took care of her until the end, too. That's right. He's lived very frugally for many years to get that money saved up. So if Grandpa wants to buy himself a car, he ought to be able to. Your uncle claimed he was taking the money out to give it to you, Dr. Johann said. Well, that's ridiculous, the niece began, but Bernie was quick to jump in. And what if I am going to give her a big pile of money? Don't she live with me now? Isn't she taking care of me now the way I took care of Mother? Dr. Johann said nothing, but observed Leslie's face grow red. She did not speak, but he was unable to make eye contact, which spoke volumes. Surely you know a fortune like yours is likely to attract 3, 2, 1.
Oh. Why are you not happy with that? Like, I want to know more. Like, Dr. Johann, what kind of doctor is he? Like, I thought they were in there for him to tell him that the uncle was dying, and then all of a sudden it's about money, and I was like, ooh.
Okay. It was a dementia assessment, I assume.
Yeah, fitness assessment. Mm-hmm.
You are going to finish this, right? And turn it into a complete novel. I am so disappointed it's over.
Thank you.
I love the picture you painted of the niece before you even told us that like the money was like going to go to her, or that he was like the description of her outfit, the fact that she had a decent blouse on, but you could tell her jeans were ripped, but not because it was fashionable. Her shoes are tattered, and the plastic purse totally gave me an image of this girl who had no money, but was trying to, at least trying to appear like she did, or like trying to hold it together. Like, I loved it. So good.
I thought the same thing too, but then after the revelation of the money, I thought, how come, is she the kind of person that would have a plastic like Coach bag or one of the fake, pretending like she has money, but it's all fake.
But I think that, a fake one, I see. I think the doctor would have pointed that out though, because the doctor would know a Coach. I mean, I just had the feeling, like his wife probably has the real deal, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I like how you started out with him with the pen. Like clicking his pen.
Thank you.
That part. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. It was it felt really struggly, so maybe that's why I wasn't happy with it. But I appreciate all that good feedback. Thank you. All right.
I feel like the pen clicking drew us in, because it was almost kind of like, okay, what's going on here? Like we were all of a sudden in the middle of the scene, listening, watching. It's like you gave us these details and we're like looking everywhere to find out what's important and where is this going. Like, I love that.
That's right. I love that. Thank you so much. I feel very fuzzy and warm. My back is very well fed.
Oh, good. After all the ribbing I gave you at the beginning, before we started recording, now I'm being nice to you.
Yeah, I gave you permission to mock.
Yeah.
All right, Bambina, what did you do with these 5 words? You're next in my little row of heads here.
It seems like we were kind of having a little bit of the same ideas.
Ooh, fun.
Just a little bit. Okay. We have the results of the dementia assessment on your grandmother, Dr. Cole said. He balanced a pair of reading glasses on his nose and looked down at the chart. There doesn't appear to be any evidence of dementia, so that's a good thing. My grandmother turned to me, eyes flashing. You see, there is nothing wrong with me. I'm going home. She stalked from the room, leaving the door open behind her. Sorry, I called back to Dr. Cole as I ran after her. She was already in the parking lot when I caught up to her, pulling on the passenger door of an Audi, which refused to open. She smacked the window in frustration. Grandma, this is my car over here, I said, pointing. Wasn't sure what to think. The test came back normal, and yet here Grandma was trying to get in the wrong car. I sighed in frustration as I climbed in. Grandma got in beside me, popping down onto the seat and slamming the door. She crossed her arms over her chest and glared out the window. Your seatbelt, I reminded her. You're quite bossy for somebody whose dirty nappies I used to change, she spat at me. But she put the seatbelt on nonetheless. I'm sorry, Grandma. Please don't be angry with me. I worry about you. Grandma didn't answer. She didn't speak at all the whole way back to her house. It was an old farmhouse sitting on the property that had been passed down from my great-grandpa. There was nothing about the house that would attract a person to it. Except for me, it held the nostalgia of home. I'd spent my childhood playing in its rooms, on the porch, in the yard, and in the fields beyond the old red barn behind it. Grandma jumped out of the car as soon as I rolled to a stop. She was still quite spry for somebody in her 80s, and she was already on the porch by the time I got out of the car. No need for you to come in, she shouted at me. I believe we are done here. Grandma, wait, I called. Let's talk about this. Until you withdraw that petition you filed to get the legal right to control me, we have nothing to say to each other. She went inside and slammed the door. I heard the scraping of the deadbolt. The white lace curtains that were always held back were yanked closed, blocking my view of the inside. I turned and headed back to my car. Fishing in my purse for my cell, I finally found it and dialed my sister. I told you Grandma isn't demented, she said in that annoying tone she always had when she was right. She's just ditzy. 3, 2, 1.
Tina, I love this voice. Whoever this person is telling this story, I love how she does not seem mad or provoked. You feel like you were channeling Rhonda with these relationships that you developed so quickly. I love this. I want more of this.
I really do. I want to hear more.
Everything
so good.
about her.
And I love the setting too.
Oh, I love how, yes. I love that.
I feel like I can completely relate with this character. It's really hard when you're that girl, you know, and you know something's wrong and the doctors don't see it, or no one around you sees it. And she's probably the closest person to the grandmother. That's probably the problem, is that she's the closest, so she's going to see the little changes first. And you guys know, I don't know if I've ever shared this on here, but my mother has dementia, and it's hard, and I've known for a long time. But her first the doctor she'd been with for years couldn't see it, and so whenever we take her in and we would say, well, this is happening and that is happening, he always had an excuse, always. And now her new doctor, I think, is making great strides, but it's too late. Like it's just happening so fast now that and so I just want to crawl into your story and tell her, don't stop fighting. And thanks a lot, Tina.
Well, I have to say that hearing you talk about your mom kind of inspired me a little bit. And also, I've been on the other side of working in the doctor's office as a medical assistant. And I remember one particular patient, he was an older man, and it happened so quickly that his wife did not have any legal documentation. And the HIPAA laws had just been passed. We couldn't even give her his medical information legally because he had never signed the chart saying she could have it. And so it was just really sad. She had to go to court and all this. And so I've kind of seen it from both those sides. So that's kind of what inspired me.
And that is the first thing they do. They get mad at you because you're trying to take away their freedom, or you're trying to get their money or whatever, when the only thing you want is their well-being. And so, yeah, well done, Tina, for 15 minutes. Well done.
Well, Alzheimer's and dementia has touched my family as well. So I just want to encourage everybody to put families who are struggling with this on their prayer list. Jennifer specifically, of course. In my family also, we have some of this going on right now, in fact. So if everyone would please just pray for those who are struggling, not just with the disease, but also with the care of the people who are struggling, that would be really special, and we would appreciate that. And if you would like us to pray for you, reach out and we can add you to our prayer list. Oh, I got to wipe the old eye here. A little misty. Rhonda, so, let's change gears here and take a listen to your tale there.
Okay. I couldn't really get started yet. I didn't do a sprint this morning to get warmed up. So after your alls, mine's going to be a little anticlimactic.
It never is.
Never is.
Say that, and
well, you just wait.
Wonderful, so.
One of these times I'm going to say that, and I'm going to read something really, really bad, just so you guys get, be like, oh yeah, that was bad.
But you can go grab it from some, I won't even say what kind of genre. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, there's just I didn't get a plot in there. Okay. As I flip through the recipe book my great-grandmother left for her granddaughters, I make an assessment of the ingredients in my cupboard. Oleo? Nope, no oleo. 4 pounds of flour? I've only taken 1 cup out of this 5-pound bag, so I'm sure that's enough. An evil grin cracks my face, thinking of my sister-in-law having a heart attack looking at the size of this flour bag. All right, let's see. Oh, 3 pounds of sugar? Wow, that seems like a lot, even for me. I lick my finger, stick it in the bag, and lick the crystals off my finger. 24 eggs? I definitely don't have 24 eggs. How big of a fruitcake is this recipe for anyway? The recipe doesn't say. I make a mental note to figure that question out before buying that many eggs. I put away the medium-sized bowl I'd gotten out for this project. Geez, Grandma, half a pint of brandy? No wonder you made this every year. It must have made everyone fun to be around. Mace. I do have that little kid attached to my keys. I fantasize about I can play the first piece of this cake for a moment. I scold myself. Now, Rachel, be nice. You know what Mace is. Don't start attracting juju. I shake my head and withdraw from the fantasy. A little molasses? A little? Isn't that like the only healthy thing in this whole cake? I laugh aloud, starting my little dog who had been concentrating on the floor waiting for manna to fall from the counter. Oh, Granny, I laugh. It feels good. I wipe away the wet from the corner of my eyes. I wish I'd known you better.
Yeah!
That's so good.
We've all read that recipe, right?
Mace.
Hilarious.
She contemplates putting this mace or pepper spray in it. That is the best thing. My gosh, that was so fun.
Oh, and I love the little dog. I love that the dog is waiting for manna from heaven. It's so great. Totally, my dogs are tripping over them all the time because they're in the kitchen with me.
Yeah, it was inspired by real life events, let me tell you.
Yeah.
How big is this cake?
24 eggs.
Is that why the fruit cakes are so hard? You can't like.
Probably.
That
So
was
24
totally
eggs.
full of win, Rhonda. That was, you were channeling your Irma Bombeck there. That was really, really good. That was really good.
I love her.
That's a lot of sugar, even for me.
I eat it straight from the bag.
She did. I'm like, oh, I'm not eating her cake.
That's almost as bad as drinking out of the milk carton.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, ladies, how fun that you guys can have me crying and then laughing till I cry in 5 minutes. That's amazing. I so appreciate you sharing those. I know we make excuses all the time. We only get 15 minutes, but you guys always delight and entertain with your exercises. So thank you so much for being willing to do that.
I think we're getting better.
I think so too.
Just the doing it, and it's, what has it been, almost a year now? And they just get better every time.
I don't know. I look back at some of our original episodes, and there's some gold there. I mean, those writing exercises were pretty awesome as well. That actually, one of our first writing exercises is what inspired my Widows of the West, what I'm doing. Remember the one where the woman was like on her way to the courthouse, and the information she had was going to free the guy, but it was going to condemn her, and that's how the story ended. You remember that? So
I do.
Like, yeah. So.
Yeah, so that's so for you listeners who are new to us, go on back and listen to those older episodes. Not only will you get to hear these little gems that we're talking about, but you get some good information. In fact, it's important for you to maybe bookmark the ones that are about a stage in your journey that you might not have reached yet. So you could go back and refer to the information that is there, because we do want to be helpful to you on your journey and give you good information as well as entertain you. All right, so that was really super fun, guys. Before we sign off, we do need to hold one another accountable to make sure that we are reaching our goals. So we're going to visit the accountability corner before we say goodbye. And again, I'm just going to go right in the line. I've got a row of 4 heads at the bottom of my screen. And Jennifer, you are first. Are you reaching your goals that you set?
I am. My goal was to be at office hours every day, Monday through Friday, and I have. Even days that were really hard to be there, I've been there. I have my major goal for this month. Actually, you want me to pull this out? I'm going to pull it out.
I thought it was the other thing.
Oh no, I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
So I for February, I need to finish the complete first draft of Phoebe, which is kind of a rewrite, but I'm finishing that. I have to do the final proof on book 2 and do the cover for book 2 by the end of the month, which I've already started working on the cover. I've got some rough drafts I'm gonna send over to you ladies to look at after we're done here. And then release Anna, which in 7 days she will have been released. And
I can do it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't have it.
Oh no, where is it?
So yesterday I got in the mail, well, actually it was the day before, but yesterday in my Facebook group for my fans, I opened up my package of my proof, the actual physical copy of my proof, and I had an extreme emotional reaction to it, which I guess I should have known because I'm just kind of a softie like that. But my aunt was here, my beloved Aunt Yvonne. And she has been waiting to read this for so long, and I could just see her itching because this is her, like, she loves Christian romance. That's her thing. And so I let her take it home so she could actually read it. She's 82. She doesn't do ebooks, so she's not been able to look at anything yet. And so, but don't tell anybody because my mom hasn't read it yet. So,
you do realize we're live right now.
I know, but my mom doesn't watch this, so hopefully she won't. I don't want her. But my mom already has. I have an advanced copy sent straight to her house to surprise. She doesn't know it's coming, so she has her own not proof copy, like a regular copy, coming to her. That will be special for my mom. So
well, congratulations and good job. So just to be clear, when we check in with you next week, we are holding you accountable to do what?
Well, next week's kind of a party, by the way.
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm. So, but for accountability, the fact that I released on that day, and that I am still moving forward. So right now I am right here. So I should be on chapter 19 of the rewrite. So that's where I want you guys to keep me accountable. That's where I need to be.
19 is the number. Great job, Jennifer.
And a rough draft for the novel, an actual rough draft for this book too. That's what I want to have done.
Which should be totally doable, you've realized, because we're being very focused and intentional. Great job. Tina, what are your goals from last week? How did you do meeting them?
Well, I had said last week that I had given myself to the end of February to finish my first draft rewrite of Lost. And that I thought I would be done the first week of February, and I am.
Yay! You're finished? Your draft is done?
Well, yeah, there's some things I want to go back and add, and I'm trying to decide if I want to do it now while it's fresh in my mind, which I think is what I'm going to do, or do it during editing and revision. But I had an idea that I want to like go back and put some scenes in, so I'm probably going to do that this week. But yeah, I wrote the final scene, so.
That is amazing! Yay! Where's your Bollywood dance number that you're supposed to? She wrote this meme on our group that when you show up for writers group with a finished manuscript, you get to do this big Bollywood thing. And so I'm just giving her a little bit of a hard time about that. But good for you. Instead, it's just.
I'm doing it in here. You just can't see it.
Yes, I said I would be done February 1st week, and I am. And I'm like, here's me. I got my draft done. So everybody is just different. That's just.
I'm feeling like the day after Christmas. It's one of those things.
Yes. I know exactly what you're saying. The best thing to do is to pick up, you do need to add those scenes in, my opinion. Add those in. Don't do that during editing because then you'll be in a different mindset kind of. So add those now while it's fresh, but start planning something new.
Well, and you did the right thing by coming and telling us because we'll be enthusiastic and excited for you, even when you, because you need to also hear the atta girls. I mean, great job. To actually say I finished is not something many people who can say who start this journey. So hooray, hooray, and happy editing to you in the future. Good job.
Right. And so for my accountability going forward, one thing I really need to work on that I have dropped the ball on, continuously, it seems like, is the duties that I have to our Patreon page and getting our emails out on the day that we release.
Like the business end of the writing stuff. Yeah.
I need to really make sure that I'm doing that at the time it's supposed to be done, so I'm not playing catch up. And also, I'm going to start, as soon as I get these extra scenes in to Lost, I'm going to start the editing process of my story about Chigiak. So that's what I'm moving to.
So when we get together and do the next accountability corner, you are going to have what accomplished that we can hold you accountable?
I am going to have those scenes that I want to add to Lost. That's going to be done, and I will have started the editing process of Chigiak, which is going to start with me having to, because I wrote it as a serial thing. So I'm going to have to sit down. I read each chapter, I guess, if you want to call it that, was a standalone story for this serial thing that I released. So I'm going to have to read it all through first in like one reading. It's a short story, so. And then I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to tie all these chapters together and make it into something people are going to want to read as a novelette, I guess is what's it going to be.
Right, because of the length. Good for you.
Can I ask a question? Just out of curiosity. So, because I'm kind of in the same kind of area that you are right now. When you switch over to editing, I know that we all believe strongly in then writing every day, like doing something. Have you thought ahead about what you're going to be writing during this process? Because that's kind of where I've been tripping up is having some, even though like some of what I'm doing here is fresh writing. So I've been keeping pretty good about writing every day. But for you, it's going to be mostly editing. Have you thought about that ahead about how you're going to keep writing? Okay.
Well, I have been researching different magazines that are looking for submissions that will pay, and I'm only looking at the ones that will pay you money.
Yep.
And I have them all bookmarked in a folder in my web browser, and so I'm going to look through those and so I'll look through them today to see what I want to work on for tomorrow. Kind of thing.
That's a great idea. That's really cool.
And Tina has started the practice of doing that. I believe her postcast submission was initially going to be inspired by one of those calls for submission, right, Tina? So it's helping you to also have things to submit to the postcast.
Yes.
Great. Rhonda, how are you doing? How are we holding you accountable? Have you done the things you said you were going to do?
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to have my second draft done by the end of next week, and I'm really focused on that, and it's going along really well. And my mom has helped me in a few directions, and that's been really helpful. And also, I'm starting a different social media for Pinterest for the Christianity Writers podcast. So by next week, I want to have that up and running and like a daily posting schedule in place. So I need to be accountable for that. And one thing I did to stay accountable is this is the place that Jennifer wrote Searching for Anna. And so I was hoping some of that would rub off on me.
And I have been a little bit inside. We let people know that you're not your regular house, that you're up. I don't know that you said that. So
yes, I'm at a lake house up in like 250 miles away from my house, and it's nothing but 3 feet of snow outside. So I don't plan on going out ever.
Sounds wonderful.
And yeah.
Are you going to use my office up there? I have my own office at our.
Well, I was going to, but that's a big window, and there's a lot of cold air So I do for a few minutes. I sit there and I look outside a little bit, but I can't sit there and write. It's too cold right now.
We need to do a whole episode, a whole podcast about doing a writing retreat.
Yes, I do have to say that Corny's story was written up there at the retreat as well. Mm-hmm. But Jennifer, sorry, go ahead. Yes, a whole episode about writing retreats.
Yeah, and we've talked about actually writing a guide for other writers too. So we need to have a business meeting about that and look to really moving in that direction, whether it's just a pamphlet or we write a whole book, a guide on that. But writing retreats have changed us.
Yep.
So, yep.
Awesome, Jen. I love that idea. Rhonda, I'm just going to say, you did say you would show up for office hours every day, and I just want to give you public kudos for keeping that goal. So good job. What are we going to hold you accountable for next time? You have done whatever by that date. What is it?
Well, by next time, I'm only going to have a day or two left in my second draft promise to myself. So
that's what we want to hear about.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
And don't you have a big publication date for that novella that makes your mom go, ee?
Yes. I decided April 11th is going to be the day that I'm aiming for to have it published. Not aiming for, I'm going to.
Wow.
411.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I was just saying it's before my Florida vacation, but yeah, that too.
Then I'm going to go on vacation and say, adios, book, because I got you done. Good job.
Exactly.
So, Jamie, when are you releasing the next book? Do you have a date for that?
Okay, so it is my turn to be accountable.
Sorry. Before you go on, I just want to say, like, I'm releasing February. She's releasing April. Someone's got to come out in March. We just got to fill the gap.
I would love, so I would love March 14th to be the day that my book 3 comes out. And so here's the deal. When I set my goals, like last week I said I would be halfway done editing this book that I'm in. So, I mean, like, depending on how much I delete, maybe I've met my goal. Like, the problem is I never know what I'm going to get when I open that next chapter. It's either like, well, there's a lot of really good here that I can keep, or it's like, this is a redraft. So it has been taking me a lot longer than I thought. So my original release date was going to be February 14th, but that was going to not happen because I knew that I was getting these surprise redraft chapters. So what I did, which nobody knows that is listening to this, although some of you suspect because I've been looking for feedback, I went ahead and published a short story. It'll be available in the Amazon store whenever they approve it, just to kind of keep the 30 days-ish publishing thing going. So I published my biker story, which if you've tuned into the postcast, you've heard the beginning of it. Or have had access to read the beginning of it. And if you were on my Patreon, you also got to see the first part. So I had that edited and I put a cover on it and I put that up there. So March 14th sounds like a wonderful day to publish the romance because it is my anniversary. So wouldn't it be nice to publish that book on my anniversary? So that will be my new target date. And so that would be terrific. We will have February and March and April. And that's very helpful to me because I did need a new goal for that book. And I would love to say by the next time you ask me about accountability that I'll be done with this edit of this book, but I cannot in any way promise that. I will pledge to showing up every day to office hours as I have been and working diligently toward that. But I can't be any more specific. But specific and concrete, yes, I will be there. And from 8:30 till approximately 10, we'll be working silently and sprinting. And then from 10 to 11:30, I'll be keeping on. Now, I only spend my first sprint writing because I just want to write 1,000 a day to keep the brain glowing. And the rest of that time is fixing this thing that is kind of growing out of control, but I got a handle on it, I promise.
Okay, so for your release party, can we have pie?
Oh yeah, it'll be pie day. I'm so sad that I didn't realize it was pie day when I got married because I totally would have had pie at my wedding instead of cake. But it was like way before the internet, and so no one was posting Happy Pie Day, and so I did not even put 2 and 2 together. And then my husband would have said, "You're too much of a nerd. I am not marrying you." So maybe it's all for the best that I did not know that it was Pie Day.
You mean what you meant to say is putting 3 and 0.14 together.
Jeez, oh Pete.
Well, I have to say that he did marry me after only knowing me for just like 4 months. And no, I was not expecting a baby. So we did learn a lot about each other after we said I do. But we were both 30 and feeling like we're not playing games. You know what I mean? When you get to be that old, it's like, you know what you're looking for. It's either move on or let's do this because it's ridiculous. So anyway, too much about all that. Okay, so I think that's all. Do we have anything else to cover before we sign off?
I just want to say one thing really quick. While you were talking, I went on really quick to see if your book was live yet because I was going to buy it.
Is it there?
It's not there yet, but I typed in J. Now, in my secondary computer, not the one I use all the time. This is just the one I only use on the side over here for podcasting. J.R.N, and it filled in nickels for me.
Really?
Yeah. So that, I mean, like, that might seem little, but to me, that's huge. Like, you are a presence on Amazon, and I'm just very happy for you.
Well, thank you. That's terrific. I really appreciate you sharing that because, you know, you just don't know. I got an email that recommended my book to me. And I was like, so is this going to other people? Like, so you wonder, did some bot just pull, you know, short sci-fi, whatever, and send it to me? Or was this something that went to many people and many people got my book sent to them? Like, you just don't know, but it is very exciting. I saved it because 3.14. And so, yeah, I'm very jazzed about all that. So thanks, Jen. That's great. And the book, the short story is called One Quiet Afternoon. I hope you all will look for it. It does have some violence in it. So If you are easily disturbed person, you may not want to pick that one up. But no swearing or naked people. So if you can deal with a little bit of shooting and stuff, you'll be right on target for my audience there. Okay, if that's all, we're going to sign off. Thank you for tuning in to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. Until next time, may your pen be prolific, may your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.